Here. Okay, perfect. Well, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today for the Delta Controls Lunch and Learn. My name is Nicole Repka, and I'm the Chief Marketing Officer here at Jackson Control. And we're very excited to announce our partnership with Delta Controls. We really feel that they're just a stellar company to work with, quality product line, remarkable support. And today we're going to have Henry Peterson and Joe Williamson from Delta Controls kind of give us an overview and just, show us why we should select Delta Controls. So with that, I will pass it on to Steve Heckler. He's going to get us started off. Thanks, everyone.
Sure. Thank you, Nicole. I think we can go to that first slide. Before we really get started with Delta, I just want to say for anybody looking at our screen, the guy sitting to my left is Craig Soderlund. He's our new Chicago market leader. We'll be sharing his contact information with everybody. Just thought I'd give him a second to say hello.
So depending on what time zone anybody's in, good morning or good afternoon. Again, as Steve mentioned, my name is Craig Soderlund. I'm the Chicago market leader. So we have various customers and employees across different regions, but I'll be supporting the Chicago and Illinois market. And again, as Steve mentioned, he'll send out my contact information. Is anything I can do to support and help you guys, I'll be here. Thank you.
Cool. Thanks. Go ahead and go to the next one. So what Nicole was saying, I like this line, it's time to do it right with Delta Controls. I can tell you, along with the bullet points that are shown here, just from what we've seen and the way information is organized from Delta and the way they communicate, there's a lot of vendors out there. I think there's a lot of great control options out in the BAS world. And a lot of the times you see a lot of going through the motions. When we're working with Delta, we really feel like we're working with a company who loves controls and who loves to get that product out there, loves to do new things. And we think that fits really well with kind of the spirit of Jackson Control. We're the same way. We love to do controls. We love to do new things, like to kind of break the mold. Delta fits that very, very well. So we'll show a little bit of that Passport site before we hand it over to Henry here in a second. I think we can go to the next slide. Wanted to take also, before we look at that, a moment to look at our territories. If you look at this map, anywhere there's the little Jackson symbol, that is where we would have a complete state worth of territory. And then you can see in Western Pennsylvania and Chicago, in those markets, that is what we have. So you wouldn't necessarily have the entire state of Pennsylvania, just pretty much to Altoona, if you're familiar with Pennsylvania. And then in Illinois, it is Chicago. Now that territory is for distribution. So if we are bringing in, say, a contractor that doesn't currently touch Delta, that is the territory we'd be able to do that in. Or if we were supporting something, those would be there. For national accounts, which is a little bit different, that's a different model where that's more of a end user, engineered, driven, spec driven market, we would be able to do that nationally. Also, any clients that we're bringing in to partner with Delta, the idea here is to grow the Delta brand. It's not to go into where a customer already has a Delta partner. That is not the point. The point is to get Delta written into more specifications, to grow Delta's market share, to come in there and spread a system and a product line that's really has more superior support than what we see from other product lines. So if there are existing Delta partners on the call, or if you're considering taking on the Delta line with Jackson, and you go into a place where there might be an existing Delta partner, it's out of respect and courtesy that we talk about that before you just go in and steal something existing and shift business from one place to another instead of growing the market. So I think it's very important that we recognize that and know that we're going to be respectful of that marketplace and do a great job growing this name and hopefully seeing it more, maybe knocking Johnson out a little bit and other product lines like that, getting Delta in there in its place. So we can go to the next one. What Henry and Joe are going to talk about, DSC controllers, which should actually, we should probably list DSC, DAC, and DVC. Anyone not familiar, that acronym is really very simple. D just stands for Delta. So it's Delta System Controllers. The Niagara API, I think most of us are very interested in that because a lot of people who work with Jackson and Jackson itself we're a Niagara-driven business. A lot of tritium, that is our favorite integration line. The Intellibus, which is the modular system that you would run the EB Manager and EBCon on. That is the picture here in the lower right that's on this screen. Those are EB managers. Those are fully programmable backnet controllers. They have that big one there with the little touch screen on it. I think that is the one that has a 3-port 10100 switch. So as we're starting to move into Ethernet and IP driven lines, this would be a good product. And the O3 sensor hub, which is pretty cool. That would be mounted in the ceiling of a room instead of dirtying your walls with sensors. That thing, it's temperature, humidity, CO2, occupancy. It has a speaker. You can read light levels. It can go in ocean or Bluetooth. Has a microphone. Henry will go in that a little bit deeper. And if all else fails, kind of doubles as a Frisbee. You toss it around. Go into, I would like to share the Passport site. And we'll go actually look at how that looks. And we'll go dig down into the Niagara API. See if everybody, make sure you can see my screen.
Yes, we can.
Okay, I'll do this as quickly as possible. So Passport, when you partner with Delta, you get what I think we all think is one of the best organized support just sites for picking out controllers, getting information, downloading firmware. The easiest thing to do is pick those controllers. And so you're going to see with the Niagara API, the firmware required on the Delta controller for it to work is version 3.4. And normally we would go, great, where do we go download that? They actually make it very simple. I'm going to click into products. I'm going to browse by application. And I'm going to tell you up front, let's pretend we're looking for something for an air handler. So I'm just going to come in. Here's your options. Where air handler is obviously HVAC. So we're going to click into there. There's an air handler. So we click air handler, and it's going to bring up all the control options that you would typically use for an air handler. And here they are. So you can see the DSC, that's Delta System Controller. And then you can see the EBCon modular that would run on Intellibus. If you click into one of these controllers, these links usually take a little bit to load because it's gathering all the information it can find about that controller into one place. So when you're specifying or just looking for a product, it makes it very simple. And this is one of the things that shouldn't be as impressive as it is, but it is because we don't get it all the time. So we'll give it a second. Again, it's gathering all that information. Always make sure to let everybody know that it's doing that. So here, once it pops up, you get a nice description of the controller. All these links here just link down to different sections of this page. But there's the catalog sheet, the release notes, the announcement. There's hardening guides for every product that I've seen. You have drawings both in Visio and AutoCAD. They're right here. You click the button and download them. Here's your firmware. So if you know you're doing a site and you are going to go use the Niagara API and you want to run it through the Delta bench, you got to come up to 3.4. Here it is. There's your firmware. You go download it. And then anytime there's knowledge base or information or a question, anything, Delta tracks that really, really well. So any information you're looking for on how that controller works and what it works for, it's all right here. And that's across the board. So anything you're looking for, it's all ready to go right here for you.
Hey, Steve, if you don't mind, I just want to jump in real quick on the firmware thing.
Sure.
The good thing is that anything that comes fresh, new out of Delta will have the right firmware. So chances are you probably should be good, but there's always the potential in the future that you will have to do firmware updates. But we always ship with the latest and greatest firmware.
Thank you, Joe.
But I do, yeah, I appreciate that. You guys find it very intuitive to surf around our site and get the information and that. So
you might not know how good it is to be able to do what we're doing. Yeah.
I guess I've been spoiled.
Yeah, and you know what, Joe and Steve, I don't think you guys need us here. So keep going.
I'm gonna go.
I'm gonna go reload my coffee and just kick back and watch.
Real quickly, while they're flattering me or whatever, I navigated over to the Delta bench, which is new, and it's very exciting for us. So this loosely, Delta through Intellibus uses a programming language called GCL+, which is just general control language. Is that what it stands for? So this lets us have a module, in Workbench, so we can do what we like to do, which is integrate and do cool things through Niagara. And I'll let those guys get into it a little bit more. But the release announcement is here. Again, I will say, anyone who is on this site, who's on the call, interested in seeing this passport site, we can generate a login. We will put a timer on it. So if we generate you a login for the Delta passport, we'll put a log out. It'll eliminate your login after about 30 days, unless you choose to become, actually start digging in. They take it on as a line. But you could browse at your will and go see all these things and absorb as much information as you would like. If we have time, I'll show this proposal support generator. I don't want to take up any more time showing this, but this basically, if you pick your controllers you're going to do for a project, this automatically basically generates a submittal package for you, which is also very nice. So I won't take up time for that right now.
Well, before you go, let me also mention that being in Passport, you can also, for those that are going to be new with you guys and implementing Delta controls anywhere, they can go directly to George University and train themselves in the different modules that we have in existence before doing the virtual school training.
Yeah.
Essentially. Yeah, I was just going to say, essentially everything that we used to do in the classroom is obviously still available in a classroom setting, but we've also done online modules as well, which Steve's kind of clicking on right now. And it goes through, there's videos of our trainer giving presentations. There's some kind of tasks to do, little exercises and tests as well.
Thank you. You can enroll right here. I will stop sharing for the moment and come back around to this material. I think we have one more slide before we hand it over to Henry that just has a couple of bullets. If you reshare, Nicole, about the Niagara API. Yeah. So this is a good marriage here, because I think what we are encountering is, people like Jackson Control and the partners that we work with most often, we are all really, really good at Tritium in Niagara. We really love using it and we know a lot about it. And of course, Delta is really, really good at using Intellibus and GCL+. Us coming together, we are going to be the team that makes this Niagara API work. And I think it's very exciting to be a part of that, and to be able to play with it and bring those two products together. I think it'll be wonderful for everybody. So we'll get into that a little bit later in Henry's presentation. And with that, I would like to hand it over to Henry and Joe and let them do some talking and get a little deeper into the Delta controls.
All right. How you doing, guys? I'm Henry Peterson, Regional Manager for East USA, Latin America, Caribbean, and anything else that Delta doesn't want anybody else to take care of. So I'm very busy traveling when traveling was allowed. So I'm starting again to start traveling across different borders, including the states that are in my territory. So next slide, please. Let's start with why Delta. Delta Controls has been in the building automation and building management for over 35 years. And part of why Delta, it's because of our how, which is do it right. Steve talked a little bit about it at the beginning. Our do it right, you will see it in different places in our presentations, not only from the sales standpoint, also because of the partners and our manufacturing, as well as research and development. One of our core values that applies in all process of our business is that it's do it right. So next, please. As you can see, our Delta building vision, at the beginning of the days when Delta Control started, we didn't have all this automation management get together, but because of the different times and years that have passed on, the companies that we've been merging with, which is Delta Electronics, and I'll talk a little bit more about it, has given us a wide range of applications and projections where we can start implementing energy management, implementing and monitoring, supervising energy management, and building automation. Next, please. As I mentioned at the beginning, we are part of Delta Electronics Corporation, and that has bring a lot of good things for our market, how we go to market, because there are some products that Delta Electronics has that we are letting our partners use, especially like frequency drives, some of the UPS's side and power supplies that we have with us and that we've been using for some of our products as well. That has helped many of our partners to achieve and get different aspects of projects that in the past they could not have gotten because of lack of products, perhaps, or equipment that would benefit and help them achieve a whole package or the whole project. Next, please. Delta Controls has over 300 partners worldwide. You can see from this map and the different places where we are, and we grow every month, every quarter, we grow and add more partners to our channel. Many of them have been with Delta Controls for over 20 plus years. So that tells you a lot of our company. And also, I wanted to touch base that our production, we manufacture 100% of our Delta Control products in Vancouver, Canada. So that makes it easy for us to number one, keep stock. Number two, ship out of Canada to anywhere in the US. And depending on the requirements, there are some in the US specifically, there are some applications and some projects that require American made. So that makes it easy for many of those partners to handle that. Next, please. So here you have a glimpse of our system architecture from top to bottom, bottom to top, left and right. The focus is obviously part of the building vision that I show you at the beginning. We can connect all the sensors and the field devices all the way up to the enterprise cloud solution. And we can control or monitor all the HVAC aspects of the project, as well as security, access, lighting, and motion. Because of the merger with Delta Electronics, you can see on the right of your screen where it says fire and security and Delta Electronics. For example, Vivotech, it's part of Delta Electronics Corporation, and we're working very close with them on incorporating some of their sensors, cameras, and occupancy products, which you will be a little bit later, how we tie that up with our O3 room controller. We also have another company that belongs to Delta Electronics family, which is Amerlux, and it's all to do with lighting. And we're currently working very close with them, trying to make different communication protocols or a protocol, specific protocol, to make sure that all the lighting equipment and all that will talk easily like anything else that we have in our system architecture. Then on the far right, you can see the Delta Electronics industrial side, which is the frequency drives, the bypass equipment that we manufacture in North Carolina as well. And then the different switch ports for networking, all that together with between Delta Electronics and Delta Controls. Next, please. We offer a series of products for our partners, third company products. We call them field devices, and you can have a list here. And one of them is obviously Tritium, which Steve mentioned at the beginning, but you can see there is an array of all kinds of different products that we can give our partners to buy directly from us and implement in their projects. Next, please. Steve, a question: do we have somewhere there where people can write down questions and then answer them, or how are we going to do that?
Thanks for asking, Henry. I think the chat, if there are any questions, just send them in through the chat, and we'll either answer them as we go or get to them at the end. But if you could, just type them in there, and we will get them answered.
Okay, good. So here I wanted to show that Delta Control has been a native BACnet company from the beginning, and one of the original founders of what BACnet is all about today. We also communicate and talk to other networks and other types of systems and protocols that are out there. So I just wanted to make sure that you could see this, and as we go with the product lines, there may be some sensors and thermostats in this graphics. Yeah, we still use it. Okay, next, please. All right. So Joe, I don't know. You want to step in? You want me to continue?
I thought Steve was going to take it from here, since he's the expert now.
I'm good. You got it.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I'll jump in here and just go over some of the products that we have to offer. How are we doing for time here? Yeah, about 20 minutes. Perfect. Okay, so to start with here, this is our Intellibus product line. So there's a few different iterations of the main processor, the main engine. So we have an EB Manager and an EB Manager Touch. The only difference between the two is the one with the -TCH comes with a 4-inch display. So it's a touchscreen display that can basically bring in information from the modules that are attached to it. So inputs, outputs, schedules, alarms, variables, and you can from that touchscreen manually turn things on and off and that sort of stuff. The Intellibus platform is a modular offering, so it can actually scale up to 512 IO points. So it can be as small as you want or as big as you want. Fully programmable. There's a built-in 3-port switch, so Main network, building network can come into this. Maybe if there's some other Ethernet devices within the mechanical room, you can use this as a switch to go out to those other Ethernet devices. And then usually what happens is people will try to keep a third port open as a service port to plug in a laptop. Supports obviously BACnet IP, BACnet Ethernet. There is 2 RS-485 ports, so one can be used for Delta MSDP, one might be used for third-party BACnet, and it also supports Modbus RTU as well. Now, I could spend an hour talking about this one, but at the end of the day, basically everything can either get directly plugged into this controller, or you can actually network out the I/O as well. So in a mechanical room, you might have in an area that would kind of make sense to have a concentration of points, but there might be an MCC or a bunch of pumps kind of off into the corner. And so rather than home running a whole bunch of wire back to your controller, you can run a 2-wire network. And we use CAN bus for the internal communications between the modules, and network them out where it makes a little bit more sense and have some of these modules remote to the main engine. So it gives you a lot of flexibility in your install. Next, and typical applications for these, large central plants, large equipment. The EB manager itself can also be used as a router between maybe a large BACnet MSTP network to a BACnet IP network, or doing some, if it's kind of a little bit, I'll use the term older of a IP network using BBMD or something along those lines. So lots of different applications. Is there a slide in between these two, or did it? Oh, okay, maybe not. There's also it's not shown in the slide here, but there's also another option for this, which is what we call the EBCon, which is a slightly scaled down version of the EB manager. The price point's a little bit lower, and it's geared more towards air handlers, but very similar options, or sorry, that's what I'm looking for here. Features, same feature set. So that's our more modular plant controllers. The DSC product line, which has been kind of the workhorse for many, many years. It's Delta System Controller, follows the BACnet building controller, BACnet profile. Again, pretty much everything that you'll see in our offering is fully programmable. In this case, these are a single port Ethernet jack, so it's a BACnet IP, BACnet Ethernet based product. Again, with 2 RS-485 ports, so got a few different options now in the DSC product line, just because it's geared more towards air handlers. So you'll have, typically one would be used for MSTP, one would be maybe for a third-party BACnet MSTP, because we'd like to kind of suggest breaking up the networks if possible. You'll have Delta on one side, this is easier to manage. Have third-party stuff like VFDs or whatever it may be on a second port, if at all possible. Again, supports Modbus RTU. Now we also have a proprietary protocol called LinkNet. And basically that is connecting to some of our temperature sensors, our smart stats, or expanded IO devices as well. So it gives you the flexibility of either adding extra IO directly onto this controller or in the same cabinet, or you can network them out. And through a gateway, we also support Enotion, and Enotion is a wireless kind of field device product. So temperature sensors, CO2 sensors, motion detectors, photo cells, window door contacts, relay modules. You can actually even get Enotion valves that, in all cases, Enotion is typically energy harvesting. So they'll either have a little solar panel on them to charge that way. I think a lot of the valves grab heat off of the piping to keep them charged, or through motion. So if it's a switch of some sort, when it physically moves, it creates enough of a charge to send a signal. Lots of different IO configurations with the DSC product line. So you basically pick which one meets the I/O of your application. Okay, next. So the DAC controllers, very similar to the DSCs, a little bit more stripped down and more intended for your unitary controls. So, it could be a rooftop unit, could be a unit ventilator or a fan coil, or anything sort of along those lines. These are typically a BACnet MSTP device. However, there are options for BACnet Ethernet as well. So they'll have one RS-45 port for MSTP and then a secondary port for LinkNet or Modbus or an Ocean. And yeah, even in our unitary controllers, they have full support for BACnet trend logs, alarms, schedules, all that sort of stuff. So you don't have to pass that information up or back and forth on the network to a more supervisory controller. Even all of our application controllers can essentially work in a standalone application. So they basically can do all their own functionality, all their own reporting locally. Next. So the DVC is essentially the same thing, same firmware files as the DAC versions. The only difference is that they are built more specifically for VAV applications. So they have an onboard flow sensor. They have a onboard actuator. You can order it with or without actuator. So if you want to reuse it, reuse existing actuators in the field, that's no problem as well. We have options for Belimo and Siemens. And one of the things we've just done recently, we've done a bit of a hardware design. Traditionally, they had a 0 to 1 inch sensor on them, and we've recently changed them to a jumper selectable 0 to 1 or 0 to 2 inch. We're starting to see a lot of applications with bigger flow rates where they're kind of creeping over 1 inch. So we introduced a new sensor that's 0 to 1 or 0 to 2. And next slide. So with everything that we've done, we always try to keep sort of ahead of the game where we can and look at the future and what future buildings are going to look like, what are future demands. So one of the things we've introduced is power over Ethernet on some of our unitary controllers. So we offer both a VAV controller, a unitary controller with 6 inputs and 6 outputs, and also a PoE module for some of our next generation products. So we've really embraced PoE. We actually do have some fairly large PoE installs globally, like in the thousands of controllers. So we've actually, we do have a fair amount. It's usually more of a kind of a purpose-built project where it's kind of in conjunction with someone like Cisco, where it's going to be a huge IT infrastructure in place. Okay, next. Okay, so now we're going to move into some of our stats. So we have what we refer to as the EZNTW. Now, a lot of our Intellizone sensors all have a lot of the same features. So just to start with, they're all fully programmable controllers. So they're basically a stat on the wall that has its own memory, its own programming. You can essentially make it do whatever you want. Obviously, by default, they're going to have temperature, but you have options for humidity, CO2, and motion detection as well. They work on a capacitive touch screen, and they come with an RGB LED backlighting. So not only can you change the colors of them, or sorry, not only is it just your standard white light background, basically you can pick the colors. So you're really only limited to your imagination at that point. You can use it for various notifications. So for instance, if it's in a heating mode, you could have the backlit red. If it's in a cooling mode, you can have it blue. You can use it for various indications. As much as I hate to say it, the world we're in now, you can use it for silent alarms in case there's a lockdown that has to occur. We've created a little app for your phone where essentially you can pick the color that you want it to be, go up and tap with NFC, and that's whatever color you select is now the color of the black background. So lots of different options and different things you can play with. We have three different colors. So what you're seeing in the picture here is our white, white, white option. So white button face, white plastic, and a white back plate. Or sorry, it's a gray backplate, I should say. We have a gray, white, gray, where it's a gray button face, white plastic, and then a gray back. And then the last one is black, black, black. So black front buttons, black plastic, and black mounting plate. Now we have a library of different buttons that you can, options that you can order. And we can also do custom. So we can make these buttons look however you'd like. You have as many or as little as you want. We can change the logos. So, you know, some of the hotel chains that we've worked with, some of the universities will put their logos or their sports team logo on the stats. Again, it's really just limited to imagination. The specific one that you're looking at here is what we refer to as the EZNTW. So rather than a traditional MSTP that something like this would be on, it's actually a Wi-Fi signal. So it resides on a Wi-Fi network. So it's been really popular in more retrofit applications, whether it be hotels or schools where they don't want to run a big network infrastructure. So you can essentially replace a standalone stat and give it network ability, and thus, you know, data coming back and scheduling and all that sort of stuff. Next slide. So that's the Wi-Fi versions, and then we also have the traditional, what we refer to as an EZNT. So that is going to have MSTP as its main network. In both cases, we have options for 3 universal inputs, and then you can either get an analog or a digital version of it. So the analog version has 3 0 to 10 volt outputs and 1 FET, so kind of like a triac binary output, or you can get the binary version, which has 4 FET outputs. But other than that, pretty much everything's the same. One thing about all these two is they have a NFC chip in it. So near field communication. It's the same sort of technology that's used in your credit cards when you're tapping and paying. So what we've done is, how we use this is we have a small app that you can download, and you can get put all of your network settings into your phone, and then you can actually tap the box that the stat is in, and it will push all those initial network settings into the stat. And they don't have to be powered up or anything like that. So you can basically, in your shop, just tap, you know, put the address in, you know, with a Sharpie, write what address is on the box, and then do the next. So you can essentially have all of your communication settings all done before it even goes live on the network. Next, please. So EZNS is everything that we've already talked about. The only difference is this is a LinkNet device. So these are intended, everything else has been more of a standalone product, a unitary controller of some sort. The EZNS is designed to be networked off of one of our DAC controllers, one of our DVC controllers. So it's basically where there's a main controller somewhere and you need some sort of a stat on the wall. So that's what the EZNS is for. Okay, so now that we're going to get into sort of our next generation of product. So this is what you're seeing is currently branded as the O3 controller. It's an integrated room controller. The way I like to refer to it as is it's the purpose of this product is to decentralize integration. Typically in the past, it's been you'll have an HVAC network, you might have a lighting network, an access control network, and it's all different networks. So, you know, different networks in the building, and then it's usually at more of an enterprise server level where the integration takes place. So you might get latency in it. You have single points of failure where if one piece breaks, you know, the whole network goes down, or communication.
Don't worry about the freight on that one.
Oh. And that sort of thing. So the integrated room controller is, by default, it's an engine, a brain for a room that can basically pick up all the different protocols that might be locally in the room. So this one engine will take care of everything within that office space, the room, the classroom, whatever it may be. So obviously by default, it's a BACnet device. It has dual port Ethernet. So you don't have to worry about home running a whole bunch of Cat5. You can essentially do a daisy chain of Cat5 through it. There's a number of different RS-485 ports. So it can pick up, Modbus. Let me just move this around. Modbus, we have a module for DALI, a Notion. We've been kind of working with KNX, but basically any of the sort of major building automation type network protocols, we can do integration to. And then it also comes with, you can add IO modules as well. So we have what we call an 8 uniput module. So it's 8 points, and those 8 points through software, so there's no jumpers or anything, can be software selectable, whether it be an input or an output. So 0 to 10 volt outputs, or 0 to 5, 0 to 10 volt inputs, 10K thermistor, 4 to 20 milliamp, or digital signals. And we also have one that's 4 universal inputs and 4 FET or TRIAC outputs as well. Let's go on to the next slide, please. Now, we do have sort of 2 different flavors. We have the O3 DIN CPU and the O3 DIN SRC. The CPU is kind of nicknamed the floor controller. So it's essentially one brain where you're going to do multiple offices. And typically we would say up to about 6 offices or classrooms or that sort of thing. So it's a little bit more expandable. You can have more modules on it. You can have more support for Modbus subnets or BACnet MSTP subnets. And it's essentially, designed as a brain to do multiple rooms. The SRC is a single room controller. So it's slightly stripped down, geared more towards one engine for one office space, one classroom, whatever it may be. Now, one of the other things that we've added is access control as well to this. So we have an access control module, which is a single door module. And you can add up to 24 of these off of a single CPU. And so each module has an output for the door. It's got an input for request to exit, motion detector, window or a door contact. It's got the card reader interface, the lock itself, and then I think there's an extra output as well. So basically it would provide seamless integration of the access control into the engine. So again, doesn't necessarily have to be all, a bunch of cabling being home run to a main access controller somewhere on the floor. It can be done locally. And let's see here. The other thing is with our being purchased by Delta Electronics, and Delta Electronics has also purchased through acquisition, have a lot of different other companies within their portfolio. And one of them is Vivitech, which is a CCTV company. And we've been working very closely with them. And one of the things they have is a stereo camera that's used for people counting. So we've taken the people counting camera and integrated it directly into the O3 platform. And we can do people counting to know exactly how many people are in the space. Do room optimization. We can basically, put rooms into spaces into setback. If there's, if it's occupancy times, but no one's there, we can do setbacks. and get as basically as creative as you want with those. Okay, so now let's see here. How are we doing for time? 10 minutes. Okay, so now this is kind of our latest and greatest. It's the O3 sensor hub, or as Steve liked to refer to as the Frisbee, and it is probably about the size of a Frisbee, maybe a little bit smaller. What this is the premise behind this is it's a sensor array to replace, and a term we jokingly use in the office is wall acne. So get rid of that temperature sensor, that humidity sensor, that motion detector, all these different things on the wall that may not look aesthetically pleasing. And when you start adding them up, it can be fairly expensive when you're looking at each individual piece as a separate component. This is a ceiling mounted sensor array, which has a standard 10K thermistor. What we've also introduced is an infrared temperature sensor as well. So it creates an IR cone and basically picks up or does a way better, more instantaneous temperature reading than a standard thermistor. There's humidity sensors on board. There is so occupancy, it's kind of neat what we've done there, for lack of a better term. There's your standard PIR sensor that does the initial triggering of occupancy. Now, I always like to stress that there is a non-recording microphone built in. So I think everyone at some point has been sitting in a meeting room and someone's giving a presentation and the lights go off. And so someone's got to wave their arms to trigger it again. And next thing you know, you're back on track. What we've done with the occupancy sensing on that is, like I said, PIR triggers the initial. Then what happens is the microphone picks up the ambient noise in the room. Now, it is a learning algorithm, so it will know what the typical noise level sounds are in that space and looks for anomalies. So, if you're in a meeting room and someone's talking, it's going to maintain occupancy. If it's a classroom where the kids have left and the teacher's working away in the keyboard, shuffling papers, keystrokes on a computer, that's going to maintain the occupancy. So it gives a more true occupancy sensing. Probably where this really kind of starts to kick in for, anyway, it has everything that you would need for a more sophisticated lighting control as well. So there's a photo cell built into it, so it reads the light levels, but there's also a light color sensor, which is kind of the new thing in lighting where you're doing light tuning and circadian rhythms and that sort of thing. So it's got the sensor built in to tell you what the light color is. So not just light level, but what color. There's an LED ring that essentially, again, this goes back to you can be as creative as you want with it. You can set the colors based on some sort of a whatever the system's doing at the time. It can flash. It basically can do like a little light ring that circles around. I think there's a few others. There is an audio a speaker built in, so it can basically play different chimes based on whatever sort of user interface is going on right now at that point. There's options for Enotion. There's also options for 2 uniputs. So you can get options with 2 inputs on there, or 2 points that can either be inputs or outputs. Think what's in the ceiling, lighting. So there's a couple of IO points there, so you can pick up LED lighting. Bluetooth is used to connect your phone's app to your specific sensor hub, or whichever ones you have access to. And there's an IR blaster. So you can use the IR blaster to turn on and off monitors, that sort of thing. Our president's office is all done up, so he can select standard day mode where the blinds are open, lights are full intensity, working away. You can hit a button and it'll say meeting mode. So it'll drop the blinds, dim the lights, and with the IR blaster, it will turn on the monitor for a meeting. Now, the last thing is it does have CO2. However, it's not actually on board. We started the project with CO2 in there, but then we found out that ASHRAE standards say that CO2 has to be read from, I believe it's a 4-foot or maybe 5-foot level. And since this is ceiling mount, didn't really work. So what we've done is for CO2, we have a Delta branded Inocean CO2 sensor, which would be wall mounted in that case. Now there's essentially 3 different flavors of the sensor hub. So the first one would be used in conjunction with the O3 room controller that we just talked about. So it's a CAN bus network where you can have multiple of them networked off of one of our O3 controllers. Then we have another version, which is essentially it's a standalone BACnet sensor array. So that's more for if it's a third-party BACnet project. So whatever manufacturer it is, a non-Delta system, you can essentially introduce these to the network. And that product is a dual port Ethernet product. So you can do daisy chain Ethernet on it. And it's to introduce some more elaborate sensing elements to a existing facility. And then the third version is a fully programmable sensor hub with the 2 uniputs, input outputs, that can act as a fully programmable controller on any network as well. And let's see here. Yeah, so I think this is pretty much covers everything that I've already talked about. So we can probably just skip this slide. And then, yeah, well, like it's been kind of mentioned a bit here. IntelliWeb is our flagship software. So it is what is traditionally used to program our controllers, configure them, do the graphics, that sort of thing. So we have the options for both IntelliWeb, which is web-based. You can either, well, we have some tech versions of it that would be installed on a service laptop, or it can be the traditional or the typical server versions of it that are installed on a server on the network that anyone who has access to it can add or access the information. Full graphics, we have dashboards, you can tailor it to an energy management or a facility management views, custom views, I mean, basically you name it. Next. Yeah, so here's just an example of a standard dashboard. So you can link graphics, you can have what we call widgets that might look at all the active alarms or the schedules or all the points that are in hand. It's really one of those things, it's incredibly customizable and it can be truly tailored to each individual user. Next. Yeah, lots of different reports through IntelliWeb. So we can do energy reports. They can be emailed out in PDF, in Excel, Word docs, PowerPoints. Basically, however someone wants to see the data, we can basically provide that.
I think you're getting right down there, Joe.
Yeah, I think maybe that's probably, yeah, we got 3 minutes left. So maybe I'll just wrap it up there and open it up for questions.
We really packed it in. I think we're recording this and it'll be available on our website, but also I think we will send a copy of the slideshow to attendees.
Yes, I will.
Yep, good. In the chat, there was one question. Would it be possible to get training service tools for field devices offered through Delta? Easy answer is yes. So, you know, it depends.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, depending on what it is, a lot of them are just stuff, for lack of a better term. So whether it be, you know, various sensors, valves, that sort of thing. So, I mean, there's probably a little bit of training involved, but not a lot. When it gets to the tritium side of things, obviously you can do tritium training through Delta Controls. When we get more into the DE side of things, we have done a tailored course for our partnership for the VFDs. So through Delta Controls and our online, I want to say it's about a 6-hour course with a test in the end. You can get fully trained and certified to do startups on the DE VFDs that are resold through us.
And some of the field devices companies offer the service tools, and we just pass it on.
Yeah. And then if you send us an email, which is on the last slide, getting a login to the Passport site, maybe having a walkthrough. So there's more to show on Passport. Anybody who wants to walk through that, we're more than happy to set up a time and go one-on-one and go through everything it has to offer, including giving you your own login so that you can go really study up and see some of that training that you're asking for and learn a little bit more about it and helping make your decision if it's right for you, which we believe that it is, of course. I got another question that came in. Is a programming language using block programming or line programming? I'll let Joe answer that. I think it's both.
Yeah, it's, and everyone tends to get a little scared when they hear this, but it is line programming. However, it's a very intuitive, almost like I kind of call it English language programming. You can look at the code and pretty much read it and get an idea of what it's doing. You don't need a computer science degree in, you know, C++ programming or Visual Basic or anything like that. It's incredible. It can be incredibly powerful. So depending on what you want to do, you can keep it really simple and that sort of thing, but you can actually do full trigonometry, arrays, matrices, all that sort of stuff. So if you're in that sort of next level, which I definitely am not, it is that powerful. But if you just want a simple line code to run an air handler, to run a chiller plant, a boiler plant, that sort of thing, it's fairly easy to pick up. And we also offer a lot of tutorials and sample programming that you can actually download and just throw it right into the controllers with shop drawings and points lists and all that accompany it. We also have what we refer to as our professional development services team that can actually do programming as well on people's behalf.
Purchase package programming. There's a little follow-up question to that and then another separate one. So the follow-up is there any intent to create block programming in the future?
We've talked about it. It's definitely on our radar. I'm not entirely sure where that's at. And actually, I haven't really asked the question in a while, so I'll follow up myself.
And then the other separate one has to do with Dolly. So can the integrated room controller read in the Dolly protocol and then output the data via BACnet?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's what it's designed for.
And I like that question. That was good and easy. So the last one is, it says this in the bullet point, but can the Delta controller be fully commissioned and programmed using Workbench, which in this case, you would want to use the Delta Bench version and not Delta software?
Yeah, the easy answer to that is yes. There's a few kind of, well, it's a work in progress right now. So we are constantly evolving our Tritium API integration. I think there are a few subtle things which I think may not always be relevant, but essentially I can safely say right now you can do 90% of it, but I think you can probably do just about everything. Again, I haven't been asked that question in a little while, so let me follow up on that one as well.
Okay. But essentially what the API is doing is it's taking what we traditionally would use as Workbench, and then underneath it's writing it in GCL plus, which Intellibus understands.
Yeah, like basically where we're trying to get to is being able to do pretty much everything without the use of IntelliWeb, where you can do top to
Gotcha.
bottom everything through Workbench.
Awesome. I think that's all the questions. Looks like I got them all in here. Thank you for that, Joe.
Yeah, no problem.
Enjoyed grilling you. We can throw that last slide up there, and then I think we'll move into thanking everybody for joining. We do think Delta Controls is doing it right. It's actually on their box. You can't see it. I guess if I held it up to the camera, but yeah, go ahead and show that. It's 03 Delta Controls. In the back it says do it right. I think they are doing it right. Anybody who wants to take that more deep walkthrough through the Passport site and see what there is to offer and get one-on-one, ask us any questions, please just send in a request and we will do that, get you set up with a login, and you can peruse it at your leisure. I think we appreciate everybody coming. Thank you, Henry and Joe, and hope you have a great day.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us today.